It has been way too long since we've had the chance to connect with you via these marriage vlogs known as Happily Entangled AF. But today, we are delighted to be able to reconnect with you in this 39th episode of Happily Entangled AF on what is a very special and significant day for us and Muslims all around the world. So today, we're not just going to greet you with hi, but we also have a very extra special greeting that we want to share with you.
Eid Mubarak! So it's Eid Ul Adha here in Trinidad, and like you said, across the world as well. And so we shared our Eid Ul Fitr traditions with you before, so we thought, yeah, we need to share Eid Ul Adha traditions as well. But before we share our traditions with you, we're just going to tell you a little bit about Eid Ul Adha and what's about, what the celebration is about, and what kind of happens at the mosque as well.
So I think there's some quick basics that you need to know if you don't already. One is Eid Ul Adha is also known as Qurbaani, or sometimes you would hear the word Udhiya. Qurbaani is the most common term. It's an Urdu term that we use locally to represent this Eid of sacrifice. Udhiya is the Arab or Arabic term, and it's really known as Eid Ul Adha. Eid Ul Adha is one of two Eids that Muslims observe over the course of an Islamic year. The Eid Ul Fitr, which you're probably more familiar with, happens in the 9th month of the Islamic calendar. Well, actually, after the month of Ramadan, on the first day of the following month, right? That's when Eid Ul Fitr happens. But Eid Ul Adha happens in the last month, or the 12th month of the Islamic calendar, known as the month of Dhul Hijjah, on the 10th day of that month. All right.
So, and it's like a 3-day celebration because it's a great Eid.
Yes.
So you have the 10th, the 11th, and the 12th.
Yes.
But generally, I've only known the Eid Salat to be on the 10th.
Yeah. Well,
but
at least here, but I'm not sure what that is like in the Middle East. In some Middle Eastern countries, they actually have 3 holidays for these 3 days of Eid Ul Adha, and in Guyana
they have Eid Ul Adha as their holiday and not Eid Ul Fitr.
Yeah, so it is this way because Eid Ul Adha for Muslims is actually the greater and more significant, more auspicious of the two Eids, because it carries much more depth and meaning and history for us. Where did it start? Well, it actually started not with Prophet Muhammad upon whom be peace, but with Prophet Abraham alayhi salam. Basically, he, through a series of dreams, was commanded by Allah to slaughter the thing that he loved the most, sacrifice the thing that he loved the most. And after a period of time, he realized that was his son. And when he approached his son was most willing and most submissive once this was the will of Allah. And at the moment that the sacrifice was supposed to happen, his son, Prophet Abraham's son, was replaced by a ram. And thus began the tradition. So every year, the way I look at it, every year this is a reminder to us via this tradition of the level of submission to the Lord's will, to Allah's will, that we should aim, that we should strive to have. That level of submission where once this is God's will, you ask no questions, you bat no eyelids, you become patient, you surrender, you submit fully, trusting and knowing that, hey, God got my back, and we good.
Need to do what you need to do.
Correct. So this is where the tradition started, and we have been commanded as Muslims to continue this tradition every single year. Now, when does Eid Ul Adha and the celebrations for it begin? For us locally, usually right after Ramadan, because like for instance at many of the masjids where they offer slaughtering services, many of the masjids start looking for their animals right after Ramadan has come to an end. So for us at Gospel Asja Masjid, that's usually either Brother Wahid or Brother Muzak, and we normally go down to Gandhi village. They have some people there that they check who would they'd go and select the animals there, and those people keep the animals for them until usually like the day before the sacrifice and stuff like that. So the preparations happen from then, and most times as well you're still running on a spiritual high from Ramadan, and with it just being a couple months down the road, you're still spiritually charged. So this is just like a booster really. When the moon is sighted for the month of Dhul Hijjah and this final month begins, immediately those 9 days preceding Eid Ul Adha, which is on the 10th day, those 9 days are 9 very auspicious days during which Muslims would try to do all sorts of other things to gain Allah's blessings and favor, which include things like
people give extra charity, they'll do extra zikr or remembrance of Allah, you'll do extra prayer, even fast. There's specific days that are recommended for fasting, and some persons will fast all 9 days, and a lot more people, I think, would just do the 9th of Zulhijjah.
Yeah. Which is known as the day of Arafah, and that's the day that carries
a lot of benefit.
Tremendous meaning and benefit, yeah.
That's like getting more into what happens in Saudi Arabia and, you know, for the Hajj itself. So we'll probably share that with you on another day and get somebody who is well learned to explain that, so we don't get into trouble.
We just wanted to give you, when I say trouble, like, we just mean like you know, we don't want to say things that and misquote or anything, right? We just wanted to share in as layman's term as is possible some quick background information on Eid Ul Adha, and I think we've kind of done that, right? So let's without any further ado now tell you about the way that we observe Eid Ul Adha in Trinidad and Tobago, and more specifically the both of us. All right, it's a combination of religious practice and local customs. All right, on the religious side, we wake up in the morning for the mandatory prayer, the morning prayer known as the Fajr, and from immediately after that prayer, and for every other after every other mandatory prayer during the course of that day, there is what is known as a takbir, or we can loosely translate that as a chant that Muslims will recite all throughout the course of the day, because this is a very auspicious day, right? So we're chanting and remembering God's name and calling his name all throughout the course of the day. There is, however, just like with Eid al-Fitr, the Eid Ul Adha Salah or prayer. So after the sunrise, not too long after, usually about an hour after, so for us that's around 7 o'clock or 7ish, we would go to the masjid to offer the Eid Salah, which is the actual Salah, go through the motions, and that is followed then by a khutbah or a sermon that is done in Arabic and thereafter in English. So same mold as Eid al-Fitr. The only difference is that many times over the Eid al-Adha would be shorter.
Sermon is a shorter sermon,
yeah, just because it's a long day ahead and there's a lot to do and we want to get a head start on slaughtering the animals, right? So that's the religious part of it. After the Salah, we go down and we begin the slaughtering of the animals. Now, we have different traditions locally concerning the slaughtering of the animals. You can choose to slaughter your animal at the masjid, at your home, at an abattoir, or what we will call like a specialist station. People who don't normally slaughter animals, but they may raise animals, but for that day of the year they may offer that service, or they just offer the service once a year for Eid al-Adha, etc. You know, and then of course there's also the option of late where many Muslims locally would send their money abroad to purchase and slaughter an animal abroad, so that the people of that country, which is usually a poorer country or a community in a country that is poor, so that those people can benefit fully from their animals. So those are all the options that we have, and between Asma and I, we've actually done all of them to, individually and collectively over the years, you know.
It's a nice experience, I think, to know what it's like for all the different ways in which you could do it and places that you would go to have it done. We've even sent money abroad, I remember that, but I felt like the years that I would have sent money abroad,
you didn't feel
you don't feel it, because you're not there, you're not in the meat. I mean, I'm not touching the meat, I'm wearing gloves, and double gloving, so my hands are not going to smell after, but you know, it's just different when you are present, you know, while it's happening.
I agree. I have sent money abroad as well in years gone by, and although it is convenient at times, I have always felt on those years like something was missing, you know, because the celebration, a large part of the celebration is not just in the animal, but in all of the traditions and customs and going through the motion, you know,
making your list and dividing it. So like the animals generally, if you do a ram or like a goat or a sheep, it's like one person would have that share. But if you do like a camel or a cow or bull, it's 7 persons, so 7 shares to those bigger animals. So when you go to the mosque and you are taking a share with so many other people, it's like a different kind of camaraderie, I think. And
as a matter of fact, I would say that my best experiences have been a mixture of the masjid and at home.
Right.
Even when I go to the masjid to participate, there is still an element of that comes home. So you kind of get the best of both worlds when you go to the masjid, because normally you go to the masjid and you there's whatever system the masjid has for however many people and however many animals. You might either pull a number, or they have a rotating system, or they have fixed numbers every year, however it goes, right? So I think the last time we participated last year, we had the second animal. So what happens is that this is where some of the religious tradition comes in. You try not to eat anything until your animal has been slaughtered, because your animal has also not been fed since the night before. All right, you try not to give the animals anything to eat, so their digestive tract would be clear and all that sort of stuff. So you try not to eat as well. And the religious tradition is that when you slaughter the animal, the first thing you do is cook and prepare and eat the liver of that animal. She and I don't do that because we don't eat liver, but that's where things like doubles, like our masjid is known for having a lot of doubles available to you as soon as your animal is done. In years gone by, when I used to live in St. Augustine, I would have prepared my curry corn and stuff like that and brought it from St. Augustine down to the masjid here in Gasparilla, just to be able to have something to share with everybody as well. And most people do this. They bring something from home or prepared already, or like
they
sweets.
come to the masjid and then they will cook. So like when the first animal is slaughtered, whoever would have done shares there would give some of their meat to make lunch for everybody who would be at the mosque that day.
Yeah.
So it's
and they're giving freely and willingly from
Yes.
their share, not sure if you mentioned this, but each animal, each person, however much meat you walk away with, usually divide that into thirds, and this is the tradition.
Yeah.
1/3 for yourself, 1/3 for friends and family, and 1/3 for the poor. And you don't have to stick to that religiously. We don't really compromise on the 1/3 for the poor, but
sometimes we put more into it.
Yeah.
Sometimes there are more people that need.
Yeah.
Especially, I think this COVID, we probably will be doing that because there are more people that are in need.
Yeah, for sure. So so that's the tradition at the masjid, and then you slaughter your animal, and the animal is then divided into 7 portions, and we do this system where it's almost like a blind system, so you weigh the meat, but you're not looking at the meat and which parts you're putting. So it's just very random, and the containers are laid out, and you're just dropping into each of the containers, and you don't know whose containers belongs to which person, so that there's no, we take all of these steps to make sure that there is no bias, that you're not trying to take better pieces for yourself, to ensure that the honesty remains, and that the shaitan doesn't tempt you, to take a better piece here, or to whatever. So that's just the way that it goes. And I think over the years we've built such a camaraderie that it's never a fight down. Usually if you're sharing an animal with people, you're sharing an animal with people that you know and that you trust, and it's neither here nor there. It's not really about the meat. It's about the festival, the observance, and chances are you're going to give that away anyways. So there's no beat up about it per se. So when we collect that meat, after the meat is usually cut into bigger chunks, right? And then you have to bring that meat home, and thereafter you're going to cut that up, weigh that out, and bag it to then distribute on the same day. So when I said earlier that it's a long day ahead, that's usually exactly why that's the case, because there's so much to do. There's the killing, there is the cutting, and then the smaller cutting and parting up. There is the sometimes cleaning, because I would normally clean my meat.
All the fat, so when you get his meat, it's nice and clean.
Yeah, I'd normally clean it as best as I can and weigh the meat. And Asma mentioned lists earlier. We take great time and effort to prepare our list to make sure that before the day of Eid, we know who we want to drop meat for, and who falls into the category of poor, who falls into the category of friends and family. And for us, like with most other people, Muslims, you'd find that they don't really stick to having their third. They usually infringe on their third and give away more of it to their friends and family, and or to the poor as well. And like Asma said, that's expected to be the norm this year. So that's pretty much the experience there. At home, I would have done it where Uncle Nizam would have come and killed the animal for me. I killed the animal myself a couple of times. What I particularly enjoyed about doing it at home was that my father would have gotten involved in the years that when he was alive. And as you would remember, the last year while he was alive, he cut up the animal, the entire thing, and all we had to do was just weigh it out and stuff like that. And he really enjoyed that, and it's one of the best memories that I have of him. you know, when it comes to things like it's one of my fonder memories of him. So it's these are religious commandments and religious practices, but they bring with them so many opportunities for families to connect, you know. And this is also one of the reasons why I think I've fallen out of favor with the idea of sending your money abroad, because these are the things that you miss out on when you forego these traditions and these opportunities.
Even for when
you know?
you have to, when you're distributing,
Yeah.
sometimes you would see family that you would not have seen for, you know, months.
Or
something
people
like that.
or
Yeah.
neighbors or, you know, friends,
Yeah.
etc., because you're going out of your way to drop this meat for people, you know, who you think are deserving or who you'd like to share this with. You have a limited amount. And just FYI, in case you're wondering about the meat, when we do sheep or goats, you would get anywhere from between 30 to maybe 40, 50, 60 pounds of meat, depending on the size of the animal.
Yeah.
And with the cows in the past, we would normally get anywhere between 60 to 100, sometimes a little over 100 pounds of meat, depending on the size of the animal as well. So that is a lot of meat. And sometimes you would, like if it's a cow, you do like 2 pound, 3 pound, 4 pound, 5 pound parcels. You know, sometimes you don't even bother to do it such small parcels. You just do bigger parcels depending on the size of the family, etc. You know, so these are all part and parcels of the tradition. One of the evolving traditions that she and I have developed is making bone broth soup. A couple of years ago, we were introduced to you know, the keto diets, etc., and the idea of a bone broth soup. And so what I would normally do now is collect the pieces of bone from the cow that doesn't really have any meat on it, like, you know, the little shoulders here and there and that sort of stuff, and I would put all of that into a pot and slow cook that for a period of 24 hours at least, and make some really awesome bone broth soup that is really good for, you know, cartilage and your joints and that sort of stuff.
Collagen lifting the face and the neck.
Yeah, so we don't do the liver, but we'll do the bone broth soup the next day. Sometimes you use some of that beef, and usually mom would go inside while we continue to cut and clean and bag and stuff like that, and get started on a piece of using a piece of that meat on lunch almost immediately. So it's a lot of work, but there's a lot of joy in it. There's a lot of fun in it. There's a lot of connection in it between your family members, and it's really an awesome experience. And so even
this year we're actually going to we're going on the link up this year.
Yeah, well, she is going on the link up this year, and my mother has those special abattoirs we were telling you about. My mother's going there this year, and yeah, that's pretty much it. The link up is a matter of convenience. So some people don't want to go through all of that. They may not have the wherewithal to be able to cut up an animal and bag, etc., and all that sort of stuff. So you take it to these specialist places or the abattoirs or the link up, and they will kill, they will cut up, and they will bag for
or
you.
you could go and do your own slaughtering. So like my father will go and he will slaughter, and yeah, they're gonna cut up everything for us, and we just take it, bring it home, and we parcel out.
Yeah, but I actually enjoy that though. When I kill small animals, like when I do the goat or sheep, I actually enjoy that. I like the process of skinning the animal and going through all of that. Like I like that because
You like hard work.
my uncle, Uncle Fatty, he used to do this. Like he was really good at slaughtering and skinning and that sort of stuff, and I used to watch and learn over the years. I remember having these memories as a little boy. So this is really something that I got from Uncle Fatty over the years, and I like that tradition. I feel like by doing it, you know, it's like almost like you're recreating that memory, you're living that time all over again, you know. So we remember, even in the traditions that where you're connecting with your family now, you're also remembering your forefathers, your parents, your aunts and uncles, etc., who have all gone, because there are special memories connected to these occasions, you know. So I remember most for Eid Ul Adha, Uncle Fatty, because he was like the boss of these things, you know. So yeah, so we just wanted to share these with you. These are our Eid Ul Adha traditions, and anything we missed out, babe?
I don't think so. Yeah, but things would have changed, you know. For me as a child, we would go to mass and then come back home, and you know, that kind of thing. We had my father, the friend. We used to call him Indian. I don't even know what his real name was.
Chances that he was an Indian?
He had curly hair and he looked Amerindian, you know.
Okay,
he had curly hair,
okay,
but he was
okay.
really, really nice. So he would be home before we get home from the masjid, and he is ready there with his cutlass and everything, and then he would chop up the meat, and you know, we would just have to do the parceling and whatever. And I think after he passed, then my father, he decided he would not slaughter at home anymore because he didn't have the help and that kind of thing. I think mommy helped him maybe a year or two after that, but it was just too much. We even had to do, I remember we had to hold the goat legs one year because Indian was not there. We had to do it.
And that is
really
how
different.
many of us actually first participated in the slaughtering process. Like, I remember even with Uncle Fatty, getting to hold the legs was a big deal, but when you're holding legs for the first time, you only got to hold the front legs because the back will kick, you know? So you only ever get to rest a hand on the front legs, and that made your day as a little boy. Getting to be able to just put your hands there made your day, you know? And my father, I remember, would be the one to go and help him hold the back legs, or my grandfather at times. And I just remember my father's hands, just like these very manly, big fingers, just, you know, grabbing hold of that, and you could see the effort they had to put, you know. And again, so many memories wrapped up in these traditions. And some people, especially if you're queasy, this may not be a tradition that is easily for you to absorb or to digest, etc. But you know, to each their own. Each religion, each faith has their own culture. This is just ours and the way that we observe ours. And yeah, that's pretty much it. And last thing is, how do you go about choosing the animal that you want to slaughter or to offer for the Qurbaani that year? For me, it has always been, I wait until I hear what my mother is going to do in the house. When my mother decides, then I will do something else. Simply because, you know, if she's doing a sheep, for instance, I won't do another sheep because not everybody likes lamb meat, you know. If she's doing a goat, I would probably do the sheep or the bull, and vice versa, because not everybody in our friend and family circles, like we have a lot of Hindu friends and family who wouldn't eat beef, you know. So we want to make sure that we still have something to give to them, whether via the goat or the sheep. So we always try to mix it up like that, and we always ensure, and I know that almost every Muslim that I know does this as well, you always ensure that you don't cross-contaminate the meat, you know, because we wouldn't want this done to us, so we won't do it to anybody else. Anyways, we could go on for a very long time talking about Eid Ul Adha because there are so many memories and traditions and wonderful connections that surround this incredible and very unique festival and observance. But we'll end there for today. It's been a pleasure reconnecting with you after such a long hiatus. We promise to try our utmost to continue to keep the content coming as often and as frequently as we possibly can. We have something to rectify on our end, which we will do, and keep the content coming your way. But for now, we hope that you will share with us in the comments below, what are your Eid Ul Adha,
your traditions, whatever you remember as a child, or maybe even things that you don't really like about it.
Yeah, your fears, your phobias, you know, whatever. Share it with us, whether you're Muslim or not, because, you know, Eid Ul Adha is not reserved for Muslims only. Like, for instance, at our masjid, we have so many people who are not Muslim who would come to the masjid to see the animals being slaughtered, or just to observe what's happening, or to get to know the tradition, and that's not a problem at all. So if you would like to learn more, or, you know, you never knew any of the things that we shared with you, whatever, you know, whatever your traditions are, whatever your memories are, please feel, or even your fears and phobias, please feel free to share it with us in the comments below, and let's have another healthy conversation. But thanks for viewing, by the way, episode 39 of Happily Entangled AF.
Be sure to enjoy your Eid. It's 3 days of celebration, so feast and have fun. And, you know, we'll catch you next week, God willing.
God willing. So until then, bye for now. God bless and Eid Mubarak.